Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar entitled Protection Against Bribery Using ISO 37001. We're glad that you're here this afternoon. My name is Joe, and I'm with the sales team of Nexus Consultancy. I'm glad to be your host today. Before we start with the webinar, please allow me to briefly introduce you to our company by showing you a short video about us.
Hi, welcome to Nexus Consultancy. We provide professional and strategic consultation services specializing in ISO management system standards on quality, environmental, food safety, and many other standards as well. At Nexus Consultancy, we combine our analytical thinking, improvement-centric approach, and results-oriented mindset to help businesses to grow through ISO certifications. Consulting is more than just giving advice. To us, consulting is about building the connection with customers, solving their problems, implementing the change, and at last, helping them to grow. Our company's purpose is very simple, which is to empower business and people. We have dedicated 12 years in helping businesses to grow and also achieve operational process improvement through ISO certifications. Having served thousands of companies, Nexus Consultancy has truly built a legacy in helping customers to achieve long-term business growth. We have served companies from GLCs, SMEs to big corporations from a wide range of industries. We will work closely with you to create a customized consultation as unique as you are, offering you a truly value-added service which can fulfill your business needs and objectives. We believe in what we do and we would also like to do it for you.
All right. Now you've seen the video. We are from Nexus TAC, Nexus Tech. Nexus Tech is an organization established to provide training and consultancy in all aspects related to management systems, like ISO 9001 and other various ISOs, GMP, HACCP, and other certifications. Our expertise is available for a wide range of industries such as the food industry, manufacturing, construction, medical and healthcare, and many more. Nexus Academy is also part of our company that does soft skill training for team or personal growth. Our motivational courses are customized based on training analysis and research gap, understanding the needs of your company prior to training. Last year, we are honored to be partnered with CAIQ from China to provide a one-stop solution center for all your China export consultation needs as well. Our services included training, which we provide customers the information about China requirement. We also do lab testings for your product. We do trademark for your product name in China and Malaysia. We do traceability for your product, certification, and registration. The industries we cover are inclusive of the food, special food, cosmetics, agriculture, and aquaculture. Canon Technology, Sendirian Berhad, is also one of our partner company who helps companies to digitalize their businesses. Some of their products and services included this real-time monitoring and control for your machines and your workers, centralized cloud-based web or online or mobile app dashboard, autonomous system and fully adaptable to the ever-changing environmental condition. And lastly, they can also provide this 3 times faster deployment and ROI. So that's all about us, Nexus, and our business partners. Nexus, together with our business partners, we're here to help your business grow. Now, before we proceed, we would like everyone to take a minute to fill up the poll questions. Moderator, can you please release the poll questions on Zoom? So everyone just take a few seconds to fill up for us. Okay, I see a lot of people are voting now. So let's see. Okay, it's almost a minute, so I'll end this polling. Okay, let's see the results. I think, how did you hear about this seminar? Um, about 50% of us get to know this webinar through friends, and the second top answer is from Nexus Tech, which is from us. And then, does your company currently have a system or guideline policy to prevent bribery? The majority of the audiences is no. And does your organization currently have any ISO certification like ISO 9001, etc.? Is 50-50. Well, that's good news for the 50% of them, because currently we are here. We are providing consultancies for ISO related management systems. So some online seminar ethic that I would like to highlight to everyone before we proceed. We will appreciate that all participants' microphones is muted at all times during the training. This is to ensure smooth and uninterrupted sessions. If you have any questions for the speaker, please feel free to write it in the chat box. The speaker will be answering the questions at the end of the training. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you to our today's speaker, Su Yin. Su Yin is our company's consultant. She is an approved HRDF trainer. She has provided numerous trainings and consultancy relating to quality management systems in the past, such as this occupational health and safety management, and of course, anti-bribery management systems we are going to discuss today. So I shall pass our time over to our consultant, Su Yin. Hand over to you.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar on protection against bribery using ISO 37001, which is also known as Anti-Bribery Management System. Today's webinar, we will discuss about anti-bribery management system, which is a topic that has sparked a lot of interest in the market. Bribery and corruption, which is an evil that has detrimental effect on many countries around the world. This is one of the reasons why we can protect the organization against bribery using ISO 37001. Although the bribery of Malaysian company enterprises have been increasing year by year, the frightening thing is that Malaysian company enterprises have not taken measure to protect themselves. So by having a anti-bribery program in your workplace, you were able to raise awareness. You will be able to educate your employee as what is bribery and how to detect it. Because very often that people think they know what is bribery, but they don't necessarily able to detect it whenever it's in front of them. So education awareness is really important with the success of your anti-bribery program. So let's have a look at the global overview of bribery and corruption. Transparency International is an NGO, and perhaps many of you have heard of it. This NGO is responsible for creating the Corruption Perception Index, or CPI, which consists of a list with the most corrupt country in the world and the places where these problems are found to a lesser degree. Countries were evaluated, and the CPI uses some specific criteria such as a survey, interview with expert, businessmen, politician to promote transparency. Each country is rated with a grade ranging from 0, which means they are very corrupt, to 100, which means they are very clean according to the survey conducted. Generally, countries with strong economy also have very high CPI score, proving that they are very well trusted for corruption control and regulation. This country will include Denmark, New Zealand, Finland, and our neighbor Singapore. While there are many reasons for such correlation, generally accepted that a country with less corruption promotes transparency and has a more efficient and effective economy. So who are the bottom 10? So the most corrupt country in the world are respectively Sudan, Somalia, Syria, Yemen. All these countries were perceived as one of the most corrupt country in the world due to the constant social and economic crisis. So where do Malaysia stand? Okay, based on the CPI in year 2020, Malaysia now ranked 57 out of 180 countries, dropping from 51 when compared with the previous year, which is year 2019. For quite some time now, Malaysia has been falling behind in terms of economic competitiveness. Although many would argue differently, the perception of corruption level in Malaysia definitely plays a role in determining how attractive we are as a potential investment destination. Malaysia has initiated several incentives to attract foreign investors, which includes introducing various tax incentives, easing work visa application for expatriates, and improving infrastructure. However, this alone are not enough. There are steps needs to be taken to improve our CPI too. This is where Section 17A of MACC Act plays a major role. CPI is an index that is respected worldwide. The CPI is often taken into account when investors are making decisions on whether to invest in certain country or start up operation. So in year 2018, the new Section 17A of MACC Act was passed, which introduces corporate liability on commercial organization in Malaysia. The introduction of Section 17A of MACC Act, which takes effect in year 2020, 1st of June year 2020, which enables commercial organization and associated person to be subjected to legal proceeding should the person associated with the commercial organization commits corruption offense. So what is commercial organization? Okay, commercial organization includes the following. Let me move to the next slide. So in simple word, commercial organization would include organization that are established under the Company Act. Okay, local partnership established under Partnership Act and Limited Liability Partnership Act. Sorry, it's here. Okay, and together with the foreign company and partnership carrying out business in Malaysia. And who will be the associated person? So based on the first paragraph here, the first point here, a person is associated with a commercial organization if he is a director, partner, or employee of the commercial organization, or he is a person who performs service for and on behalf of the organization. So let's say if I employ the security guard to pay a bribe to whoever, then this bribe will be under the organization. And we have the second point here, the question whether or not a person performs service for and on behalf of the commercial organization shall be determined by all relevant circumstances and not merely by the reference to the nature of relationship between him and the organization. For this point, so if let's say that I engage a law firm for legal service and I pay them above market rate, so they might pay a bribe on the company behalf, but they are not employed by the company. So let's go back to this slide. So accordingly, where an offences is committed by a commercial organization, the commercial organization director, controller, officer, partner, or any other member in the management of the commercial organization affair will be deemed to have committed the offence, unless it can be proven that the offences was committed without the person's consent, and that due diligence to prevent the commission of the offence was exercised. So the burden of proof then lies on the commercial organization to prove to the court that adequate procedure were communicated. Okay, communicated, implemented, and enforced effectively within the commercial organization to prevent associated person from committing an act of corruption. So upon conviction under Section 17A of MACC Act, Okay, a commercial organization may be liable to a fine of not less than 10 times of the value of the gratification or 1 million ringgit, whichever is higher, a maximum jail term of 20 years, or both penalty of the fine and jail term. The purpose of Section 17A of MACC Act is to foster the growth and development of a business environment that is free of corruption, and to encourage all commercial organizations to opt for reasonable, proportionate measure to ensure their business and business activities do not involve act of bribery and or corruption. So this is the first case for an offense under Section 17A of MACC Act, which happened this year. So the MACC said in a statement that the investigation was found that ex-director, while he was still with the firm, to have given a bribe to a company in exchange of being awarded subcontract to charter the vessel of oil exploration work. The offences were committed by a former director with the entire project estimated to be worth around 1 billion ringgit. As an effect of the former director action, MACC said that the vessel rental company current chief would also face a prosecution under the corporate liability law within Section 17A of MACC Act. So is advantage equal to a bribe? I would think that it depends, is there a service in return or will it be seen as a goodwill? By right, the activity will not create any obligation or expectation on the recipient. Whether an advantage constitute a bribe, one must consider objectively will be, the first one will be the purpose of the benefit. So for this point, okay, was it made for the right reason? Let's say if you have a gift of hospitality, it should be given clearly as an act of appreciation. Number two, we have the value and frequency of the benefit. So the value and the nature of the expenditure, is it proportionate to the occasion? And the giving and receiving of the gift or any hospitality, is it overly frequent between the giver and the recipient? Third one here, we have whether the benefit is equally offered to others or just the recipient in question. So we need to know, was it made openly? It shall not be performed in secret and be undocumented. If it is, then the purpose becomes questionable. Fourth, here we have the relationship between the offerer and the recipient, in particular if there are official dealings between them. So we need to make sure that there is no undue influence. The expenditure will not be seen as intended for or capable of achieving undue influence in relation to a business transaction or public policy engagement. Lastly, we will have the recipient's position and the role. Okay, are these offerings corrupt? Okay, so in the slide here, we have wedding gift, ang pao, hamper, paid holiday, golf club membership, entertainment, hospitality, facilitation, payment. So what do you think? Give me a 1 if you think, in the chat box, if you think, yes, this is a type of corruption or bribery. You can give me a 2 if you think it is not a type of corruption or bribery. Okay, we have a lot of response saying yes, it is a type of corruption or bribery here. So we actually need to consider, all this was given openly and transparently. Are they properly recorded in the giver books or record? Okay, so gifts, hospitality, and expenses are vulnerable to being used as bribery. They can be used as bribe on their own, but they also pave the way for bribery by entrapping a person. They can also be used to build or maintain a relationship during a bribery scheme. Gift and hospitality and also travel expenses are a high-risk area for bribery and have figured in a large number of bribery cases. They are troubling for company to manage as most legal requirements do not define boundaries, while in many societies there are deep-rooted customs relating to gift and hospitality. Therefore, it is really important that to have all the best practices or guidelines where they are transparent, proportionate, reasonable. So if the company follow this approach, such expenditure are unlikely to be criticized by stakeholders or considered an offense by the authority. However, company must ensure they have implemented adequate policy and procedure and tested their design against stakeholder expectations and applicable legal requirements. So I will be providing some example that how bribery may happen. Okay, so the first example here is bribery risk from contractor and suppliers. So Mr. A gave an expensive watch worth 1,800 to Mr. B for facilitating the approval of a construction project in favor of Mr. A company. Mr. A is a contractor while Mr. B is a government officer in the department that awarded the contract. Okay, so it's very common, okay, that people that are in the procurement and contracting function, sales and marketing function that participate in contract tenders are also very vulnerable to corruption, bribery, particularly the solicitation and the receipt of bribes and kickback. But like what I just mentioned in the example, employees may pay bribes to win order, gain insider information such as tender specification before they are released, or influence tender specification or procurement process to make them more favorable to the company. Second example here, okay, we have an example about kickbacks. Okay, so based on this picture, this illustration here, okay, company B, let's say company B is a government-owned company that going to grant contract and also being bribed. Okay, it has invited tenders for a number of companies to conduct the work. So company A appeared, okay, which want to bid for the contract. The contract has a value of 100 million ringgit. Okay, so the briber from company A comes to an agreement with a corrupt official in company B, okay, whereby company A is awarded the contract and is paid 115 million. Okay, so in return, company A pays a kickback of 15 million to the corrupt official in company B. So this is an example of kickback. One more example here is bribery risk from promotional expenses. Sponsorship of medical expert attending conferences with little business content and substantial travel and hospitality benefit. So very often, okay, promotional expenses involve gray area where it can be difficult to judge the appropriate level of hospitality or expenses. An employee may have to make a snap judgment, and then it might draw into inappropriate situation which may be judged as a breach of the company no bribe policy. And in some societies, okay, the business culture involve gift giving and entertaining, and employee may be uncertain how to respond this custom while balancing a desire not to cause offense and yet stay within company no bribe policy. Okay, so where the offense under section 17A, okay, made out, the commercial organization face a strict criminal liability. This means that the commercial organization would be held liable regardless of whether it has natural knowledge of the corrupt act of its associated person. So additionally, the senior personnel of the commercial organization, which includes its director or any person who is concerned in the management of the affair, is presumed guilty of the same offense unless proven otherwise. Hence, okay, individual in top level management also face personal liability under this section. And Section 17A impose heavy penalty where you have a fine not less than 10 times of the value of the bribe or 1 million ringgit, whichever is higher, or imprisonment for 20 years or both. So to prove it's not guilty, a commercial organization must prove there are in place of adequate procedure designed to prevent persons associated with the organization from committing the corrupt act. The Prime Minister Department has published a set of guidelines to provide guidance on the adequate procedure to be put in place to assist commercial organizations to prepare for this. The guideline on adequate procedure outline the 5 guiding principles of trust. To comply with Section 17A, the starting point would be to formulate and implement policies, procedures, program, and control around the trust principle. The question of whether a commercial organization has implemented adequate procedure is dependent on the level of risk it faces in light of its size, nature, and complexity of business. Hence, there is a need for the company to put in place adequate procedure as a defense in case there is proven corruption by the associated individual. So the first principle here, principle 1, okay, which is top level commitment, refers to the responsibility of top level management to ensure that commercial organization essentially practices the highest level integrity and ethics. The guideline defines top level management to be a person who is the organization director, controller, officer, and partner, or who is concerned in the management of its affairs. This is a wide definition and can be imposed a wide range of persons managing a commercial organization. So what do top management do? Okay, so top management can actually establish anti-bribery policy. You can promote a culture of integrity, ensure policy are communicated internally and externally, and also encouraging employees to speak up. So principle 2, we have the risk assessment, which recommends that a comprehensive risk assessment to be done and reviewed periodically. So what are we trying to identify in the risk assessment? It will be the weak spot in the organization governance, transaction that could be a cover for corrupt payment, okay, whether the company carry out activities in country or sector with higher corruption risk, and any non-compliances of external party acting on behalf of the company. And under principle 3, we have undertaking a control measure. Okay, appropriate contingency measure, which includes due diligence and stringent financial control, shall be in place. So what can we do here? We can establish due diligence procedures, policy, we can set up whistleblowing platform, we can implement various policy to address conflict of interest, give entertainment, hospitality, donations. And under principle 4, okay, we have systematic review, monitoring, and enforcement. Okay, the effectiveness and efficiency of the anti-bribery practices or program ought to be regularly reviewed and assessed. And what can be done? Okay, what can be done? Okay, we can actually conduct or ensure regular review in the implementation of the monitoring program. We can identify competent person to perform an audit. We can evaluate the effectiveness or suitability of the policy. Okay, we can also engage external auditor to assess compliance and the effectiveness of all your current policy or procedures. And lastly, we have this principle 5, which is training and communication. The organization anti-bribery policies, okay, or practices should be made available and communicated to all personnel or business associate. The commercial organization should provide its employee and business associate with adequate training to ensure a thorough understanding of the organization anti-bribery program and position. Okay, so with what I've just explained, okay, maybe we can launch a poll and to see is your existing anti-bribery practices or program aligned with the trust principle. Okay, I think we can stop the poll and let's see the result. Okay, okay, mainly we are getting yes partially and a no here. Okay, no worries. Let's guide you through on how you can demonstrate adequate procedure through ISO 37001. Okay, so how can you demonstrate adequate procedure through ISO 37001? Okay, so ISO 37001 provides a practical guidance about how a company can implement a program that complies with trust principle. Okay, the adequate procedure also cover broadly the same area but without a certification element. So with ISO 37001, which is an international standard, which can also offer multinational specific guideline in developing a universal anti-bribery management system that may support most adequate procedure defenses. With the standard, it can assure that international investor, potential business partner, and clients that the ISO 37001 certified organization has the control system and program in place that ensure the integrity of their operation and protect against corruption losses and potential corporate liability. So we can actually incorporate trust principle into ISO 37001. Let's have a look at the first principle here, which we have the top level commitment here. So how can we comply under ISO 37001? So the ISO 37001 standard offer direction on how to achieve such commitment. In the standard, responsibility are divided between a governing body, okay, a governing body which is responsible for approving the organization anti-bribery policy, and top management who are responsible for ensuring the anti-bribery management system, including policy objective, is established, implemented, maintained, and reviewed, and adequately to address to organization bribery risk. Further guidance is provided for organizations that are too small to have governing body or even top management, such as when only one person is responsible for the management of the organization. So for principle 2 risk assessment here, okay. So once again, the ISO 37001 standard requirement correspond with this requirement of adequate procedure. To meet requirement of the standard, organization undertake regular bribery risk assessment, which identify, analyze, assess, prioritize the bribery risk. Evaluation of suitability and effectiveness of the organization existing control to mitigate the assessed bribery risk is also a mandatory. The frequency of bribery risk assessment is dependent on the company size, okay, complexity of business activity, and the location of the operation. And move on, we have this undertake control measure. Okay, so there are clause requirements that actually addresses due diligence, okay, policy and control. Okay, so with that, we can actually implement appropriate contingency measure, okay, which include due diligence, financial control, non-financial control, and etc. And next, we have the systematic review, monitoring, and enforcement. So notably, organization may be able to apply for a certified compliance with one of the certification body. Okay, and with that, okay, after you pass the audit, you will actually be awarded with the ISO 37001 certification. And lastly, we have the training and communication. So in ISO 37001, it details the training and awareness requirement that an organization must meet. A general level is stated that the organization shall provide adequate and appropriate anti-bribery awareness and training to personnel. ISO 37001 directs company to take a risk-based approach to build a training program, and it requires that personnel shall be provided with anti-bribery awareness and training on a regular basis as appropriate to their role, and the risk of bribery to which they are exposed, or any changing circumstances. So with ISO 37001, it actually helped to reduce bribery risk. It helped to demonstrate a culture of integrity, transparency, openness, and compliance. But unfortunately, ISO 37001 does not guarantee that no bribery will happen, as it is not possible to completely eliminate the risk of bribery. So it is actually the same as a company that implement quality management system, okay, ISO 9001, okay, which you cannot guarantee that their products or services are free of quality issue. However, an entire anti-bribery management system in operation can significantly reduce the chances of dishonest act happening. So ISO 37001 helps to prevent, detect, and respond when bribery happens. So by how? Okay, we will establish policy objective, we will define roles, responsibility, we will have communication and training, we will have risk assessment, due diligence, implementing financial controls, and also a guideline on reporting and investigation. So who can actually use ISO 37001? The standard is flexible and it can be implemented by large organizations, SMEs, public and private sector organizations, and also NGO. So this is the world's first internationally recognized anti-bribery management system, which can be independently certified, and it can be also implemented together with other management standards. So does the standard require a standalone management system? The answer is no. Okay, the measure required by ISO 37001 are designed to be integrated into the organization existing management structure and control. So ISO 37001 uses the same common structure, terminology, methodology as ISO 9001, which is the quality management system, ISO 14001, which is environmental management system, and ISO 45001, which is the occupational health and safety management system. Therefore, an organization can implement some or all of these standards in a similar and integrated manner. So now let's have a look at the key component of ISO 37001 has this thing actually adhered to the high level structure. So anyone who experience, okay, or in contact with ISO 9001 will be able to understand this structure. So ISO 37001 specify in various anti-bribery policy procedure which the organization must implement to assist in preventing bribery and in identifying and dealing with any bribery which does happen. An organization is only compliant with ISO 37001 if it has implemented all the required measures. However, this measure should be implemented by the organization in a reasonable and proportionate manner according to the type and size of the organization and the nature and extent of bribery risk it faces. So if you ask me which are the most important clauses in this standard, I would say that all the requirements of ISO 37001 are important since we have to follow the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, the PDCA cycle. So from clause 4.1 up to clause 10.2, the organization shall meet all its requirements. So let's have a brief explanation of all clause. We will start with clause 4. So clause 4 is for context of organization, which is part of preliminary work involved in implementation of an anti-bribery management system, begins by understanding and documenting the context of organization. In other words, it is essential to understand, okay, what affects the company externally. For example, legal, cultural, social market and competitiveness issue, and also economic environment in which the company operates as well. So we also need to understand the internal issue which involving culture and the value of the company. It is also essential to understand the needs and expectations of stakeholders. So who are the stakeholders? Okay, it can be your customer, your suppliers, your directors, your employees, and etc. Okay, the standard also emphasizes the importance of risk assessment at this point. The bribery risk should be identified, evaluated, and prioritized. So when planning an anti-bribery management system, okay, organizations should take steps to identify and evaluate their bribery risk. It should be categorized according to different levels from low to high risk. And in clause 5, it addresses leadership within an anti-bribery management system. It is not enough that the people at the top of the organization who control and run the business simply support the system. It is critical that they are active and involved in the process. So when it established the standard, people with responsibility and authority for operating the system should have direct and immediate access to the board of directors and senior management to communicate relevant information. In fact, responsibility for implementing anti-bribery management system involve everyone who can be the board member, director, manager, and also all people who work in the company is responsible for the compliance of anti-bribery management system. And we also have a governing body such as a board of director, for example, these executive bodies such as senior management. The board of director is responsible for improving and reviewing the anti-bribery policy as well as overseeing the management system. And the role of anti-bribery compliance function, this role is similar to what existed in the previous version of ISO 9001, which was known as management representative. The standard requires that this role to be filled by people who have the necessary ability, status, authority, and independence. And clause 6, we have planning. Before the anti-bribery management can be implemented, it needs to be planned. This is what Clause 6 of ISO 37001 addresses. This includes steps such as determining which anti-bribery legal requirement apply to the company, determine the kind of right of system should prevent, understand the nature of the organization in its activity, understanding the needs of organization stakeholders, evaluating the risk of bribery in the organization, and also to determine the scope and objective of anti-bribery management system and planning and define the necessary anti-bribery control. Clause 7 addresses certain aspect of support, okay, for company to comply. So to comply with Clause 7 support with the standard, organization must provide adequate resources to establish, implement, maintain, and improve the system and in an ongoing basis. There should be adequate training in communication of anti-bribery management system, and the information provided should be documented. Three aspects in particular may require some adjustments so that the processes are in accordance with the requirement of ISO 37001. The first one that involved will be the role of anti-bribery compliance, which requires determine the necessary ability and skills for people to carry out the work from an anti-bribery perspective. We ensure that such person, okay, should have abilities through appropriate education, training, and or experience. When applicable, take measure to develop and maintain the necessary ability and keep documented information that serves as evidence and which demonstrates that the person has the ability to perform the role. The second one will be due diligence, okay? Due diligence requirement, it can be understood as a process in which a person, a company is investigated in depth through the study, analysis, and evaluation of information and documents in order to understand the level of bribery risk they are holding or exposed to. Specifically, if employee holding a position exposed to a medium and high bribery risk, okay, person acting in the role of anti-bribery compliance, and he or she should be subject to this due diligence process before being hired or being transferred or promoted. So it is essential to communicate directly to employees and business partners who are exposed to medium and high bribery risk, and it should be published using the company internal and external communication platform. So next we have Clause 8, which is operation. So Clause 8 addresses the operation of ISO 37001, which includes also due diligence, control of financial and non-financial, as well as registering suspected or actual cases of bribery. Okay, it also covers issues of give and donation as well as investigation. So due diligence is a key component of the standard, and it should be performed whenever there is any bribery risk in business transaction, project activity, or relation with business associate or people connected to the organization. So when bribery risk cannot be managed using the means described in the standards, okay, the organization should take appropriate measure to terminate, discontinue, suspend, or cancel the relationship as soon as possible. So low-risk business associates such as retail customer or suppliers, some suppliers, generally do not require detailed inspection. However, due diligence on business associate who act on behalf of the company or for its benefit will likely require a more comprehensive checking. So where the risk of bribery is high, the organization of your business associate should sign a commitment and require them to implement control related to the transaction, project, or activity with the aim of preventing the occurrence of bribery. So the company may also implement a whistleblowing procedure, a hotline or platform, which include criteria that who is managing the whistleblowing process hotline. Is it the management? Is it someone independent? Does the person report to ultimately higher management, or they are reporting to the board of director? So it is really important that the people who are going to perform the investigation, they are seen as independent. So move on, we have clause 9, okay? This clause addresses the ABMS anti-bribery management system performance assessment. Organizations should periodically evaluate the anti-bribery management system either by means of an internal audit or by an independent but competent external entity. This audit consists of a process that evaluate procedure control and system for a bribery or suspected bribery be non-compliance with requirements of the anti-bribery management system. So we are also trying to detect failure of compliance by business partner in relation to the applicable requirements of the organization and weakness or opportunity to improve the anti-bribery management system according to the standard. And lastly, we have the clause 10, okay, which is improvement. The last clause addresses non-conformities and ongoing improvement. When non-conformity happen in the organization, it should be react immediately and take steps to control in correct deviation. It should assess whether there is a need for action to eliminate the cause or the causes of the non-conformity. If applicable, the action should be implemented and follow up with the verification to evaluate the effectiveness of the action if necessary. So organizations should work continuously to ensure the adequacy, sufficiency, and also effectiveness of the anti-bribery management system. And improvement can be identified during internal audit and in critical review meetings, okay, management review meeting by management or the people involved in the anti-bribery compliance. It is important that whenever the need to improve your anti-bribery management is identified, then the improvement should be planned and implemented. So where should I start, or how should I implement ISO 37001? Okay, so first of all, you can actually define scope of your anti-bribery management system, and you can perform a gap analysis to identify the gap versus the requirement. Then you can train the team, the employees, the interested party on the ISO 37001 requirements, and plan and develop the documentation process indicator to fulfill requirement. Then move on, we can, after you have come up with a documentation, you can start implementing it. And from after implementation done, okay, started, okay, then we can we can actually attend internal audit training before audits, and perform internal audit and management review, conduct a pre-assessment audit if required, okay, or else you can just request certification body to perform stage 1 and stage 2 audit for certification. And after the audit, let's say you have any findings, okay, you just need to rectify, you need to provide corrective action for any NC that you receive before obtaining the certification. So ISO 37001 directly correspond with adequate procedure guideline. Although no certification can completely eliminate bribery risk, but ultimately, whether a compliance program meets the adequate procedure defense, it will be decided by the court on a case-to-case basis. So to meet the requirement of the standard and be awarded a certification by a certification body, it is necessary for an organization to document all procedure carried out. As a result, okay, implementing a ISO 37001 standard will demonstrate a resilient and defensible compliance program. Having a ISO 37001 is not a one-time event. It requires the support from all levels to implement, enforce reasonable, proportionate, and practicable program. ISO 37001 certification are not a guarantee against future misconduct, nor does it shield a company from persecution. We must always know that there is no one-size-fits-all compliance program. It depends on the risk of the company is operating in terms of the sector, geography, likelihood of dealing with government official or third party. Therefore, do not overestimate its value that there is no bribery in your workplace or a shield from prosecution. So by adopting ISO 37001, which is a certified standard, we guide you on the process in putting those best practices together and to be reviewed continuously. So to wrap up today's presentation, I hope this training helped you to develop a structured approach to ISO 37001. And all right, thank you so much for allowing me to share. I will pass the floor back to our moderator, Joe, regarding on the Q&A.
Thank you, Suyin. Thank you, Suyin, for your sharing on the protection against bribery using this ISO 37000. Now we should proceed with the Q&A. We'll try our best to answer most of the queries. Okay, you may write down your questions in the chat box. I see there is already some questions, so we'll start one by one. Is that okay, Suyin?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, the first question is from Kate. What risk should be considered during bribery risk assessment?
Sorry?
What risk should be considered during bribery risk assessment?
In assessing risk of bribery, okay, I think consideration can be given to business opportunity risk, okay, which includes the risk that pursuing or obtaining business opportunity that may result in the act of bribery. We also can consider country risk, okay, by looking at the CPI score, okay, so we can actually have an assessment that the overall risk of corruption or bribery associated in the particular country. Transactional risk, okay, which includes an assessment of the risk associated with a business transaction undertaken by the company, and also partnership risk, okay, which also include risk from relationship or partnership with third party or person connected with the company.
Okay, so I think I hope that answers your question, Ms. Kate. Let's proceed to the next question from Philip. Is compliance with ISO 37000 mandatory? Must I go for certification in order to implement ISO 37000?
Generally, no. Okay, it is a voluntary standard that a company can adopt. Okay, you can definitely implement ISO 37001 in the company without being audited by a certification body. So if let's say if you would like to go for the certification, then you will need to engage an independent certification body to verify that you are compliant and conform to the standards.
Okay, next question from Mastura. Okay, it says here, if my company, I think CO stands for company, right? If my company is small and at the top management level, only 2 partners, is always vigilant. I think vigilant, he means here, is very careful person. So do we need to subscribe to ISO certification if that's the case?
ISO 37001 is not a mandatory certification. Just need to make sure that you have the adequate procedure, okay, that you have the trust principle, you employ, you have comply with the requirements, okay, the guidelines stated in the adequate procedure, then that should be fine.
Okay. So next question is from Alice. When to conduct due diligence?
So due diligence is about checking. Okay, so who do you check? Okay, we can actually check personnel or employee prior to the employment, promotion, transfer, or if there is any incident of misconduct. We also can check on business associates or supplier. So before engagement, or if you have any first time engagement or renewal of contracts, okay, you can actually have a due diligence, or you also can check on their performance evaluation, incident of misconduct, or any changes in circumstances lah. And also you can do due diligence for project or business activity. So prior the commencement of a project, or as and when there are changes in circumstances.
Okay. I think due to time constraint, we will try to answer 1 or 2 more questions. So next question will be, I think, from Leonard. Who in the organization should manage the whistleblower platform?
I think it depends on the size of the organization. Ideally, there should be an independence in the team that manage the whistleblowing platform or a hotline if you have. So the company should have a reporting line that directly to the board of director, or we call it as governing body. So I think the purpose of having a robust reporting line would be whatever comes through, it would be seen through a completely unbiased, and usually this would be your ethics and compliance department that would report to the CEO or COO, who then reports to the board or director. It can be also a corporate HR function that does not belong or report under a certain business unit of company. So ideally, it should be someone that is seen as impartial as possible. And the function that should be, managing the whistleblower line or platform should be someone that is independent as well.
Okay. One more. Hi, Miss Sween. Can you provide a simple checklist or points for all the organization to identify the gap? I think this is mentioning in clause 10, right?
I think I can provide a few points here. Okay, you can check whether the company have a code of conduct for directors and staff. Does the company have an internal control system? Does the company have a framework or control for procurement function, control for sales and marketing function? And what are the measure and control in recruitment, allocation of duties, overtime work, staff benefit, appraisal? Okay, and also you can check, is there any control measure for stocks and inventory to prevent misappropriate or misuse?
I think I would like to apologize that the time allocated is quite short for the Q&A. We still have a few more questions which have not been answered, but not worry. Our salesperson will be contacting you to address the issue lah. Lastly, I think we would like you all to help us to give us a feedback on our webinar. We have a QR code for you to scan, and our moderator will also send a survey link to everyone in the chat box. Please do help us to fill up. If you do so, we can send you this pre-recorded video for today's webinar to your email. So you may take your phone and just scan or you can click the link in the chat box. So very quickly, so this one I will just move on. So if you didn't manage to scan, you can just click on the link later. Very quickly, I would like to move on to the next slide. Aside from today's webinar, okay, we are also providing a few more webinars in the near future. So as you can see today, we have the protection against bribery, and in September, we have environmental health and safety legal compliances for manufacturers. And in December, we have using technology for your business growth webinar. We also have webinar on topics regarding to export to China and what you need to know. Next slide, please. Yeah, in July, we have this what Malaysian food can we export to China, and in October, we have tips for export to China, a complete guide. Yeah, you can find all these schedules on upcoming webinar in our website, Nexus TAC. So please feel free to join us again in these sessions. And lastly, please follow us on our social media platform like Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram for various infos and industry news. Maybe I can leave this screen for you, so you can use the phone, to scan the QR code to our social media platform. And thank you for everyone for your time today. I hope everyone had a wonderful and fruitful session. Hope you learned something, and have a great day ahead. And we hope to see you again soon. Okay, that's all. Thank you. Thank you for participating. Yeah, thank you. Remember to fill up the survey, then we can send you the pre-recorded video for today's session.